Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow. For those who've watched quite a few of these episodes, if you know anyone who would benefit from watching, please share it with at least one person. If you're watching us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Akeel Hassan, a financial manager who completed his articles at the Auditor General and is now based in Australia working for a company in the UAE. Akeel, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for the platform, for allowing me to come on your platform always and share some of my knowledge and skills and what happened in my career experience with the people.
Looking forward to learning from it. But let's jump in. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Akeel Hassan? Give us the backstory.
So Akeel Hassan is studied at UWC, the University of the Western Cape. I was in my high school one day when CAs or chartered accountants came to present about the field, and it seemed so interesting. They seemed so professional. They portrayed the field really well. And in that time, in grade 7, I decided that, you know what, I would, being in the right stream in my high school years, I thought, let me follow this route. And I went on to study the BCom accounting degree with the CA stream. And then I obviously did my articles as well. And while I was doing my articles, I studied CTA, jumped straight into level 2, passed some subjects, but not all. I wasn't able to even do it in a piecemeal basis. But I don't think any of that was a loss for myself. I think it all added to the journey that I'm on. And my main reason for doing that is I always wanted to have a degree and I always wanted to have some professional designation behind my name. I'm still working towards the latter, but it's all fine. And then besides, on a professional side, being sitting with numbers and statements all day, I do have a creative side to myself. So I dabble a little bit in YouTube, just to let my creative juices flow, as I would say, and start using another side of my brain. Just shows my creative side, so that lets me let off some steam as well and keeps me well around.
Okay, amazing. Um, One of the main reasons that I reached out to you is that I've done many interviews with many people, but then I get lots of DMs from people who've done their articles at the Auditor General, and they say international opportunities are closed to me, or I don't have these options. But you managed to find a sustainable international opportunity. Did you go through those same struggles, and how did you overcome those?
So that was told to me as well when I told family members maybe or people that were similarly in the field that I'll be doing my articles at the AG, and they were like, oh, that really closes you off to other opportunities, and you could start to believe that, but I think if you make the most out of your articles, it shouldn't stop you. So I was fortunate in the fact that I had good managers, but I also was a person that took the most out of the article opportunity those 3 years. If I can, obviously, maybe future or past people would have explained how the audit scenario works at the AG. You get the municipal client, and then you get the PFMA cycle. So, you know, municipalities, and then you get like a City of Cape Town or the smaller funds and so on. So you would generally, when you start, you would just do 2 audits a year because they're quite lengthy. You go through the full planning process. You could take them through the entire audit process. So what I did in my first year, obviously I had 2 clients, and in my second year, I asked for more engagement. I was put on more engagement. So I took the max out of that article time that I could. So the second year was 3 clients, and I would help on another audit. And then in the last year, I think I had about 5 audits that I was on. I would assist on other audits as well. If an audit ended early, I'd ask to be put on. I'm not going to say names because it's fine, but I would be asked to put on another audit, another engagement, and I take the max that I could out of these engagements. And then the Auditor General, being anyone can do the articles anywhere. No 2 articles are alike, but I feel like the AG opens your mind up to the way the world runs, the way our country runs, and allows you to see things that maybe other people would never see in their lives. So, from that perspective, it's not a bad thing, I would say.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, and did you get experience only with municipalities, or do you get experience also with like SOEs or
So you
state-owned
get
entities?
state. I was on state-owned entities as well, because they do use the accrual basis, not the cash basis of accounting, which is kind of small businesses use that. So being at SOEs, being at funds, so funds mainly have mandated to do certain things, and it's very interesting where you step into they're mandated by act maybe, or and they have to do certain mandates. I was in the forestry and fisheries industry. I was in the oil and gas industry. I learned about crude oil, national key points. It's just all very interesting. It's something that, I mean, in if I would be someone else, I don't think I would have been able to see how those things function, the legalities even behind those things,
I
and
didn't
contract.
realize you'd get opportunities across different sectors. That's actually something that I'm surprised about.
Yes, you do. So it was the strategic fuel fund. Um, it was the forestry and fisheries, so marine living resources fund, which is a very interesting our sea life, and where they'd be in the next 10 years, studies on the sea life, your normal fishing permit, something simple like a fishing permit, a docking permit for the boats in the harbors, simple like that, but it's all around the country, and you get to see the actual places where these things happen.
And was obviously after Auditor General, you didn't go from Auditor General straight to the UAE or Australia.
No.
Was there, did you need to have like a transition process? Did your employer in the UAE look for things like other experience? Talk us through that.
Oh, so okay, while we just leaving the AG, I had good managers there, so all of them they don't need a mention now because they know who they are. There was nice hierarchy, so you had access to assistant manager, manager, senior manager, and they all played a part in your success, I would say, of your articles. Leaving the AG, I obviously knew I had to leave the AG because it was a training institution, and the fact that I did not qualify to become a CA in that time, that's one of the requirements. So I knew at the back of obviously I hoped in the last year of CTA that it would pass all subjects. It did not happen, regardless. I then stepped into a job or interviewed for a job at Maitland Group. Well, the company is now, I don't believe they're there anymore because they've been sold to Apex Group. So I stepped into a position as an offshore fund accountant. So I had minimal knowledge about that environment. I just come with my audit knowledge and basically reconciliation knowledge, and learning how to use Bloomberg. I did have a good mentor there as well. His name is Amir, who was the team leader, and my team leader as well. So I learned from them. They taught me how to think, how to prepare files, just how the investment world works. So I feel like Maitland Group was good for me to step into the job that I stepped into the UAE, because it was a company that did investments and it was in the financial sector, but they did as well very boutique products, derivatives as well. So yeah, that's basically. I wasn't headhunted. Actually, if I think about my journey to the UAE, I wasn't headhunted. My
Tell us
wife
about
got
it.
a job in the UAE, and we decided to give it a go. It was around the time of COVID, so we couldn't leave the country. And then obviously things happen with the jobs that you have lined up, and they kind of fall away or something. But then her job was still safe, and we decided to go anyway. And I never went through a headhunter. I never went through a recruiter. I looked for my job myself, and within 2 months of being there, I managed to land this role at Frontera as a senior accountant, because the accountant had left. And in that job, I think I worked about 7 months to a year, and I was promoted to finance manager. But my background with understanding all my background at Maitland Group, with the Bloomberg terminal, corporate actions, dividends, all those things, understanding how the bonds work, pricing of the bonds, and so on, was what I kind of did on the side with Frontiera. So did end-to-end financial reporting, but obviously inputs there were inputs from derivatives, uh, bonds that were bought, coupons that needed to be paid, etc. So having that background helped me a lot, for them to choose me as well, to say, okay, you would be the guy to do this.
Most of the people that I talk to, they sorted out their job before they leave. You basically took a leap of faith and you search for your job there.
Yeah, I definitely took a leap of faith, and was lucky. I wouldn't say lucky. There's no lucky involved in it. It's a lot of hard work looking for a job in that, being that the market there is so competitive, and a lot of people go and they maybe try to do what I've done, and they won't be successful, or they maybe weren't successful because it's time based. To be in the UAE, can't be, you add a visa factor into seeking a job, so there's a time limit to that. So if you don't secure something in a time, you kind of need to leave the country, etc., etc. But granted that I could have been sponsored through my wife, basically visa sponsored through the wife as a family. You understand? So I would be able to stay in the country. But for most people who decide to go and look for a job and doesn't work out, they kind of have to leave because it's time dependent. And yeah, that's the interesting part of that. But I managed to secure a job, and then job hunting in the UAE as well is very competitive, like nothing else in the world. Recruiters, there's a lot of search engine optimization for jobs as well. So if your CV just doesn't have the matches of the words that are required for the job, you'll be overlooked, even if you're the best candidate for the job. And that I find is something that maybe South Africa doesn't employ, but that's employed a lot overseas. So it's a full revamp of your CV as well, and everything there.
For the audience, we will be responding to questions towards the end, so please add your questions to the comment section now. Um, so I know you mentioned, I mean, it's quite a competitive environment in the UAE. Are there
Mhm.
lots of jobs available, or is there a bigger pool of professionals and less jobs? Maybe talk us through that.
I'll say there's a bigger pool of professional and less jobs. So being that it's time dependent, so it depends where you can be in the company, but it's definitely the answer I've given. So there's a big pool. There's a great competitive nature in job hunting. I did go for like 3, 4 interviews, and because these were like professional jobs, the lines weren't out the door to, what people see on TikTok where they say open interview and there's hordes of people. So it was maybe me against, I wouldn't say against, you are actually put it against the person at the end of the day if you think about it, but it's me against maybe 5 others, maybe more senior category or senior role, someone better suited for the job. So obviously they got the job. And then sometimes from a company's perspective, they maybe budget is very important for them. So they don't have an unlimited budget for a position, and a position sometimes absorbs other positions as well. So already with those factors in mind, you kind of have to understand where you would be in the market. And if they were going through a recruiter, recruiters are very costly. So I've been on the other side working with a company, you know how much recruiters charge to place someone on their after they get their first salary, and that's quite costly. I don't want to mention figures right now. Yeah, if you want me to mention figures, I could, but it's up to you. But they really quite costly. So if you add that to the budget of sourcing, like they say, manpower over there, it's hugely expensive.
And now I mean, you're based in Australia, but you're still working for the company in the UAE. So I think was it always a remote role, or did they give you?
No, no, it wasn't. I recently left there, so with the move to Australia, because of the tasks that I've given, I used to handle the bank accounts and all that. And with the time difference, I obviously weren't comfortable. They were comfortable, but they wouldn't want the time difference to hinder their operations, because we had like huge amounts of coupon payments that needed to go out on the same day based on a certain rate. So if those are late, you could default on those things. So we found a replacement for myself. I went through a handover process, and now I'm busy with an assignment in Australia that I started this week.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And maybe talk us through the process of moving to Australia. Like, how long did it take, and what was the process like?
Um, the process to move to Australia is quite more difficult than the UAE, I would say, because they have these with the UAE maybe has a few visas. They have tourist visas, they have working visas, and then they have these freelance visas. Australia is a different ball game. It's quite pricey to move to Australia as well, and the visa takes longer. So you need to go through a full medical. It gets lodged. You need to fill in more forms than you can imagine, and each visa category has different requirements. So that I'd be more willing to talk about the UAE visa side and then
Okay.
the Australia visa side because it's
Okay.
so complex.
And what are the differences in working for a company in the UAE versus South Africa? Talk us through maybe some of the differences and some of the similarities.
So having worked in a few places in South Africa, so we can say Auditor General, we can say Maitland Group, which was a worldwide company, and then the company in the UAE, they were set up in the Abu Dhabi global market. So if you can picture like the New York Stock Exchange or just a business hub, so they had these four towers, um, which obviously complied to the UAE's laws and the ADGM's laws as well. So they had to quarterly report on their profit, quarterly report. They call this prudential reporting. So your balance sheet, income statement, your cash flow, and you have to keep a certain cash requirement all through the year to not go below that. And you kind of get this experience to worldwide people. You work with people from different backgrounds. So in our office, we had a Brazilian, a Scottish, a Irish, a Austrian, a French Moroccan, someone from India, British as well. And the owner was like Spanish. So you get all these accents, all these different environments. So it opens you up to how different people work. It opens you up to anything, and the exposure was really great because okay, we had a good corporate structure. We weren't asked to work overtime. We had a fixed 9 to 6 working day, so that was fine. But the fact that, say, if something was needed attention and it was assigned to you, you would do your best to complete it, give feedback within a week. So even if you didn't know, you would it forced you to gain some knowledge and learn about what you needed to do. So the UAE tax law, I had to familiarize myself with that. I had to familiarize myself with the tax laws in duty or free zone, as we call it, all around the UAE. They have these free zones, and each one has different benefits. So the ADGM has a 99-year tax free, where you wouldn't pay corporate tax, and the UAE just uh, implemented corporate tax recently for the period going forward, but still free zones will not pay any tax. They just have to file. So it's very interesting, very different to what you would be used to in South Africa. You're
Okay.
more responsible, I would say. You're more responsible. There's no passing it off to another person. You're the responsible person. And that's what I learned from being the finance manager or stepping into that role.
And now I know you said you've been in Australia for 6 weeks, but what is the lifestyle like there so far?
So Australia, I would say I'm gonna just easily compare to South Africa. South Africa from maybe 15 years ago. South Africa that where service delivery is good. That's the way to say it. But it reminds me really of South Africa, and it's a very safe state, and it's first world. It's first world, trains on time, metro. They the infrastructure is there, so that's very interesting to see.
No, that's amazing. I see there's a lots of questions coming through from the audience, so I want to jump over there so that I don't miss them. We've got a question from Fairuz who says, "How different is the work ethic and culture compared to SA?" I'm assuming she means to the UAE. I'll give us that perspective.
Okay, so to the UAE, so I think we in South Africa, or just my experience, in South Africa, worked in more of a team environment, and you obviously build off each other, and you've got someone to go to if you need some insight. In the environment that I worked on, everybody had their own departments, and I kind of just get inputs from them. So if I need their portfolio files with calculations, I'd just get it. But I'd be the responsible person for my position, and I'd be it would end by me. The buck would end by me, as they would say. If I didn't get it done, it wasn't done. But I always got it done. So it's more responsible. Basically, there's you'll be fully in charge of your position.
Okay, I see.
So
So,
you
and is that a company specific thing, or do you think that was pervasive across the across
I
Abu
think
Dhabi?
that's pervasive across the UAE,
Okay.
where you, if things are behind or you step into a role, you need to learn things on your own. You need to just take it with both hands and figure out a way to piece this down and get it done. So that's kind of what you should look out for.
And then we've got a question from Mandy who says, "How well received is the CASA, and don't you need to do equivalent degree or qualification?"
So I worked obviously under CASA in the UAE. I should have actually mentioned that. So it was a finance manager, CFO, and then myself as a finance manager. So I worked under CA. So I would say that they are highly regarded all over the world. I can say that for in the UAE, it was amazing to work under CA as well. So that designation obviously is worth its weight in gold, and all the blood, sweat, and tears that goes with the studying for that. Um, you don't need to do equivalent degree. Like I said, the UAE's tax laws are very, I would say, new. The corporate tax has just been, set in stone. There's still some recommendations going through, even on the corporate tax law. There's no deferred tax in the UAE. So it's a simple tax structure. But then in the environment that I was involved in, we did have companies in the UK as well. So we had a great group entity, a complex group structure. So we had entities in the UAE, entities in the US, entities in the UK, in Malta, Bahrain. So I had to familiarize myself with all those setups of those industries, tax laws, requirements. So I was kind of running audits for different entities throughout the year, meeting quarterly requirements for those entities. And that's why I say the job was like, it was challenging, but it was really good for my growth.
So now you know the tax laws of many different countries.
Yes, and the setups to them, what they require. Sometimes we outsource certain things like in Malta, etc. But it was very interesting.
Okay. Another question from Fairuz who says, "Well done on your career growth. Much continued success. Would you ever return to South Africa?"
I would return to SA for for the familiarity. See something that South Africa has that the rest of the world doesn't have. But it would be more for family and maybe for career growth. I think the way to go for me at this current point in time, from what I've seen, I mean, if I take it on a standard process, if I had to stay in South Africa and work at Maitland, how many years would it have taken me to in that position to become a senior? Would not have taken 1 year. Even if I've proved myself, I had proved myself to that company as well. I was doing the job with 3 people. Um, but I mean, it took where they could see, okay, you can handle the pressure. You've got it. So you were rewarded for tenacity in figuring things out, making sure that things are done. Um, I'd love to return to SA. I'd love to return to SA if things got a bit better in the career sense, that we'd have job opportunities as well. Because yeah, during COVID as well, it was very challenging to even get any type of job. Yeah, before we left to the UAE, so kind of not being able to leave. Um, it was really difficult. I think I got a job as a consultant.
Okay, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Any last few words from you, or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
I would say so. So my last few words would be like, don't put limiting factors on yourself. And even if you've given a job opportunity or something that you feel that's just above your threshold, grow to that threshold and try and rise to the occasion, because not everything is going to be comfortable in the working environment where it's something think about the job you're in, think about if the skills are transferable, and that kind of sets you up to growth and being where you want to be. Because sometimes you step into positions that are very niche and very it's not transferable. So you kind of do you decide, do you still want to stay in that role for 5 years, or would you rather be in a more generic role with growth? So that's kind of what I found in, and given my current experience and academic. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to end.
Yeah.
Show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Akeel, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Tooways.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat.